Welcome to South Asia. This is Reddy, your facilitator in South Asia channel. We will bring a quality of information. The region south of Pamir North, that is Karakoram, and north of the sacred city of Kanyakumari, in the form of icons, images, and map to the audience. Today, I am going to talk about Indian history and Treaty of Bassein. Treaty of Bassein is also called Treaty of Versailles. And there are actually two treaties in the Treaty of Bassein or Treaty of Versailles. The treaty that is not generally not talked about is the first Treaty of Bassein in 1534. I will talk about it briefly and its implications and legacy. And the most important treaty, the Maratha ruler Peshwa made with the British in December 31st, the last day in 1802. I actually wanted to talk about the main important treaty of 1802, but also added so that our audience have a good understanding of both of them and their implications in the Indian history and culture today. We see the lot of things we today experience in day-to-day lives are due to predominantly the first and also second and also first treaties. There is a town called Versailles. This is the Bombay. Bombay used to be an island. More than 6 islands, Bombay, Trombay, Mahim, and Colaba and so on. The later British, when it got under their control, reclaimed it. Now it doesn't look like a conurbation of islands. And there is also surrounding island called Salsette Island. These are the two important group of islands that played a very prominent role in Indian history. There is a Ullas River, comes from the Sahyadri Mountains in this region in the Thane district and splits there. The western part goes to Versailles Creek, also called Bassein is the other name of Versailles. See, the train from Bombay goes to Bassein, Virar, Valsad, Surat, and Bharuch and Anand, finally to Karnavati or Ahmedabad. So, Bassein just across the creek. This is the Thane Creek. So, this is the Bombay Islands and Salsette Islands and Thane district and Bassein and Versailles. To keep you in proper perspective, what is the Bassein? Portuguese, when they first discovered trade route to India via Cape of Good Hope, they become a prominent political and military power in the Indian Ocean, especially the Mozambique, Swahili coast, Muscat in Arabian Peninsula, the Aden and Hormuz and all those areas they conquered and built a lot of force. And that means previously which were under Muslim control, Arab control, Yemeni control, and Mamluks of Egyptians control, and they were superseded by the Portuguese. All of a sudden, the Muslim kingdoms in India started feeling the effect now because their adversaries in Europe, because Ottoman, the rule and Ottoman fighting with the European Christian powers has an effect here. And round about the same time, and Portuguese also wrested the island of Goa, Velha Goa, from Adil Shahi ruler, Yusuf Adil Shah, and they established their form, the rule there. And northern part, Gujarat Muslim Sultan was ruling. At that time, the ruler of Gujarat Muslim Sultanate was Bahadur Shah, who was a contemporary of Humayun, who was ruling at Delhi and Agra in North India, the Mughal ruler. And the contest between the Portuguese from the seas and the Muslims from the coast finally led to sign a treaty called Treaty of Bassein at Bassein. between the governor of Goa, the Portuguese Empire in India, Nuno de Cunha, and Sultan of Bahadur Muzaffarid dynasty at Ahmedabad. According to that treaty, the Sultan decided to give group of islands surrounding the Bombay. This is Ilhas de Bombay. Ilhas means an island. Then the city of Bassein. Bassein means Bassein at that. They called it. They spelled it differently. Bassein means later called Bassein, or the local name was Vasai. Bombay, local name was Mumbai. And it was a very deep water port. Very, very important thing. Deep water port means easy to defend, easy to secure, and easy to wage offensive war on the mainland from the port. This was done in 1534. The Treaty of Bassein, which the Sultanate of Gujarat gave the islands related to Bombay to the Portuguese. That's only a part of the story. The later big story was when Portuguese Princess Catherine was married to the British monarch, and the Portuguese gave this island to the British crown. That happened in 1661. That was the time when Shivaji was rising as a prominent military general in the west coast region, challenging Adil Shahis and Qutub Shahis and Mughals. And Portuguese gave that island to British. Because remember, the Bombay is a deep water port area. Before that, the British has their headquarters, East India Company, north of it, Surat. Surat is at that time port center and major outlet of Mughal Empire to the seafaring as well as going to pilgrimage to Hejaz, Makkah and Medina. A British East India Company has headquarters there, and it was not that secure. So when they got it, they moved slowly. All their administration headquarters of west coastal region, Ganga Sagar to Bombay. The important thing here we have to keep in mind means that acquisition of Bombay in 1661 we have to see in the same perspective as the rise of Shivaji as a prominent military political force in that region. At the same time, British were also laying a foundation for their rise. Even though later, 1661 means almost 100 years later, Panipat battle was fought in North India, north of Sonepat near Karnal, across the river Yamuna, and Marathas lost. And meanwhile, British were building their empire step by step. And from Bombay, they finally decided to challenge the Marathas. That's how we have to look at it. 1661, giving of the Bombay Islands by the Portuguese to British East India Company. That is a serious implications to Indian culture and heritage later. That happened because 1534 Treaty of Bassein between the Portuguese Empire in India and the Sultans of Gujarat led cessation of Bassein. At the Treaty of Bassein, the port complex, island complexes to Portuguese. Portuguese were essentially interregnum. They held it nearly for more than 100 years, finally hand over to East India Company. They were essentially the holders. And what is the implications of this Portuguese acquiring the Bombay Island? Portuguese already acquired lot of ports in the Indian Ocean. So they established a supermassive Indian Ocean, and they already acquired the island territory near Goa, Velha Goa or Gomantak region. Now they acquired deep water ports of Bombay Island group. So they essentially checkmated the Islamic imperialism of Mamluks, Ottomans, and from Mozambique to Malacca, they became the masters. So that also helped the nationalist in India to rise and fight against the local Mussalman empires of Adil Shahis and at Bijapur and Qutub Shahis at Golconda, Hyderabad, and Mughals in North India. And at the same time, Portuguese also introduced Catholic imperialism, Goan acquisition, and Portuguese imperialism, essentially a part of European imperialism, which they laid the foundation. Later, European imperialism raised in the form of British imperialism. At the same time, it also helped to the rise of Maratha Empire also. In a broader perspective, that is the legacy of the first Treaty of Bassein in 1594. Coming to the second treaty, the most important treaty, Treaty of Bassein in 1802, the last day, December 31st, it was signed by the ruler of Marathas. Maratha rulers, this is called pentarchy at that time. 5 rulers were there. All of them was under the control or later years as after the Battle of Panipat, nominal control of Peshwa. They were Peshwas at Pune on the bank of Mula Mutha river, south of Indrayani valley and east of Sahyadri, and Gaikwads at Baroda or Vadodara in Gujarat, and Bhonsle Rajas in the Vidarbha plains, northeastern Maharashtra today, are the bearer Rajas at Nagpur, Nag Vidarbha, and the fourth one was Holkars at Indur or Indore, south of Ujjain, and the last were at Gwalior, Sindhias. And all of these 5 rulers with their headquarters called Pentarchy, the Maratha Empire was under the control of Peshwa. Peshwa appointed them. At that time, even after their decline, the Peshwa Empire or Pentarchy commanded the armies and force from the banks of Tungabhadra river in Deccan to the almost Sivalik regions in North India in the upper Doab and south of Gagra river. They had a vast empire still in the declining period, and their rulers signed this humiliating treaty. Why this happened? After the Battle of Panipat in 1761, Marathas declined, but they revived for a couple of decades, 2 to 3 decades, under the powerful Peshwa Madhavrao. Peshwa Madhavrao died in 1772, that's almost 11 years later, and Ahalyabai Holkar in Indore and Tukojrao Holkar, her distant relative as a general, Maji Scindia in North India at Gwalior. They were the Nana Fadnis, the supervisor or in charge or controller of Peshwa, young Peshwa, head of the Regency Council, were the prominent leader. Nana Fadnavis, Ahalyabai Holkar, Tukojirao Holkar, and Maji Scindia. All of them passed away round about 1794, 95, 96. And the last powerful, the Qureshi force of Maratha Empire, Nana Fadnis, passed away in 1800 in March or so. At the time, the British Governor General was Lord Richard Wellesley or Lord Wellesley, the brother of Arthur Wellesley, the victor of Battle of Waterloo, 1813 in Europe against Napoleon Bonaparte. The important thing is already British became very powerful after the death of Nana, and there was practically no challenger, and British wanted to gain control of Peshwa. And Peshwa, the controlling of Peshwa became very important and became a major fight between Holkar, Jaswantrao Holkar and Daulatrao Scindia. And there was a contest between these two, and Jaswantrao Holkar with a very big army came to Deccan, crossing the Narmada and Tapati and Godavari, and gave a crushing defeat to Peshwa. Baji too, who is the son of Raghoba, infamous Raghoba Raghunath Rao, and panicked Peshwa left Pune. He went to Birwadi, then he went to Bankat on Vasishta river. And from Bankat fort, which was under British control, he took a boat and went to Bassein and landed in the British lap. After 2 months or so vacillation, he signed a treaty called Treaty of Bassein. Treaty of Bassein is essentially other name for subsidiary alliance. That means the Peshwa himself put under the British protection. The British will place the Peshwa on his throne at Pune, and he will agree to keep the British will keep the contingent of the armed forces, contingent of forces in Peshwa's territory at Pune. British will appoint a resident, and all his external relations has to be conducted through the British resident at Pune. That means he cannot have any negotiations with the neighbors. Not even his subordinates like Anandrao Gaikwad in Baroda and Daulatrao Scindia in Gwalior and Raghoji to Bhonsle in Berar and Holkars. So essentially he surrendered his independence. That was essentially subsidiary alliance that was signed in 1802. At that time already Richard Wellesley's brother Arthur Wellesley, who at that time was Srirangapatnam, and he was doing a mopping operation, some insurgency in the border between Mysore, princely state, and Marathas, Dondo Wag, a freebooter. And his army was ready at the border and Tungabhadra region. And once the treaty was signed, immediately the army from the west, Arthur Wellesley, moved, and the British contingency from Bombay crossed the Borgat Pass and entered in Pune round about May or so. Peshwa was established now as a protectorate of East India Company. That is the result of Treaty of Bassein 1802. Afterwards, what happened within a few months? This was in 1802. May, June, July, and war broke out. Second Anglo-Maratha War, British-Maratha War between with Holkar with the Scindias and Bhonsles, where they were decisively defeated. That was the outcome of this. So what are the serious implications of the Treaty of Bassein 1802? Treaty of Bassein 1802, here you can see that was signed in the December 31st. Here you see the Maratha ruler Peshwa Baji Rao and the British between the East India Company Bahadur and Baji Rao to the signatories. It is the most humiliating treaty. The powerful ruler of Marathas and the guardian of Hindu Empire meekly surrendered to a small the trading and military outpost at Bombay and Bassein to the Britishers. That means Maratha Empire was unraveled after that. That's the implication. British imperialism established firmly in India. British Empire in India became British Empire of India. And after British, they start intellectually manipulating and controlling the society, building the universities and all those things, and started Mekhalayism. That means the Hindus intellectually disarmed. They started thinking in British ways that India is not an innocent land. It is a congery, a group, potpourri of this group, that group, this religion, that religion. Hindus were one among so many people. They're always meekly submitted to the foreigners. They didn't have any civilization, culture. These are all barbaric. They worship many gods. So these type of negative ideas were planted intellectually in the minds of Hindu society. Hindus were disarmed intellectually. That is one of the implications you have to remember indirectly as a Treaty of Bassein. This is not to say that this was responsible directly, but it plays its crucial role. The treaty and the next war, second war, and the third war, collapse of Hindu Empire, Maratha Empire, and consolidation of British. What? You have to look in a broader perspective. That's what I am trying to convey. That is the first treaty, and then the second treaty. Let's go and look at it. The maps, you will get a better idea. See here, this is the Portuguese Empire India. I am showing WikiMLA, very good source, and you can stop the video here and go to this and can find and explore them there. Essentially, the Portuguese, after finding the sea route via Cape of Good Hope here, that is the Cape Province and Cape of Good Hope in the Union of South Africa, Swahili coast, this is called Kenya, Tanzania. This all came under the Portuguese control. Portuguese were the the riders, the converters, the proselyters, and seafarers and explorers, as well as devoted Catholics whose aim was to convert the heathens or Gentiles. That we should not keep in mind. Most of them people think they are only explorers. They were not. They were all molded in one. So they had a control over Mozambique and Malindi and Kenya, Tanzania ports, Hormuz here and Muscat here and Aden here. In India they had control over Surat, then Goa and East Coast, Coromandel Coast. Even at Canton near Hong Kong they control that. This is the Indonesian island, this is Papua New Guinea, Moluccas, and this is Straits of Malacca, that is across Singapore now, and H and Sumatra Island. They have a vast empire. So they essentially control in this, and after securing Bombay, they controlled a deep water port. They essentially eliminated Muslims in the sea trade, selling of the spices to Egyptians, then selling of spices to Europeans later through Venice or Venetians. So essentially that was major setback to Islamic imperialism, indirect help for the Marathas to rise, fighting against Adil Shahis, Qutub Shahis and Mughals. That is one implication of Treaty of Bassein 1, that is 1534. And here we can see the Vasai region. You see Bombay and Kalyan here, this is Vasai. You can see the Vasai fort or Bassein fort. Now today it is dilapidated condition, but as once upon a time, major political military decisions were taken at that place. Vasai or Bassein, across the Bombay Islands and Salsette Island, across the Vasai Creek, close to Virar, and you can go to see, you can further north to Vasal, Valsad and Surat, Navsari and so on. That is a Bassein or treaty. Both the treaties were signed there, and you can see here after the Battle of Hadapsar, where Jaswantrao Holkar defeated Peshwa Bajirao. Peshwa fled in panic. Pune will be somewhere here. Yeah, you see Pune, Chinchwad and Hadapsar. And he went to Birwadi and later and Mahad. He went through this river, and finally there is a small fort city called Bankat. You can see somewhere here. Yeah, Bankat Fort. At Bankat he stayed for a couple of days, and he took the boat, and Bankat was under the British control, East India Company, and went straight and landed in Bassein under the British control. And British already was looking for their prey, and the prey itself came and joined their cage, and they were too happy. This is Vasai, this is a Bankat. And as I again showing the same thing here, a Bankat here in this Bankat, and Srivardhan and Mahad, the capital of Raigad district today, and Pune will be somewhere here and that. And you can see the Bombay Islands here, and you can see across the creek, Osai Creek, you see Osai or Bassein. But yes, Osai was the local name, and Bassein is the Portuguese version of that name, and showing the same thing. And that is about the, here we are showing this entire thing, the treaty of Bahadur Shah of Gujarat, who signed the treaty, and Treaty of Bassein. Treaty of Bassein, we can see briefly in the Wikipedia, the Peshwa Bajirao signing the treaty, and the articles of the treaty we already discussed. So that is in essence about the Treaty of Bassein or Treaty of Versailles. Actually, the main treaty was signed in 1802, that is second treaty, that's the most important treaty, but first treaty is also very important. A lot of people may not be aware, so I wanted to bring the both of them in proper perspective, how they played such an important role in today's history, the English education, lot of alienation, and secularism, and all those things to subvert the society, all have their implications with the rise of Portuguese Catholic imperialism in India, and later consolidation of British imperialism in India, and intellectual disarmament of Hindu society and decline in their intellectual sheen, till the rise of Mahayogi Sri Ram Swarup Ji and Rajarshi Sita Goel as intellectual giants, reviving and analyzing these events in historical perspective. So today we discuss them in that broader context, and thank you very much for joining the presentation. This is your presenter J. Reddy at South Asia Maps, and we will continue to look at various aspects of South Asian history heritage in maps, icons and pictures, and will be in the next couple of presentations. I will talk of certain treaties also, and I also opened a new playlist of battles, the important battles. It's not just saying about the battle or belligerent where it happened. What is the historical significance? How in our day-to-day life it affects us, the India as a general. That also I will discuss. This the battles, one playlist, and folder the treaties that was signed, important one playlist I opened, and also I opened a playlist for historic regions and districts in India. Eventually we will cover a lot of those areas as and when time permits, and as per your feedback. Thank you very much, and see you later on the other presentations.